Welcome to the Inner Athlete Podcast, where we discuss all things youth athlete development and youth mentoring. Welcome back to the Inner Athlete Podcast. I have got Coach Jack back here with me. So Jack's been an imperative part to our speed development program, which we run during the spring and summer terms, which is term 1 and term 4 in Australia. We do have some international listeners, which is really cool now. And one of, I guess, my personal things is knowing how to run for a lot of field sports, even if it's court sports as well. What I have noticed is, especially in Australian culture, and even in the US culture as well, to some degree, it's just play. Yeah. Sometimes it's worthwhile to actually try and break down the technique or the technical side of sprinting and running technique. And, I think playing junior footy, and then even for me playing rugby, you see these a plethora of running styles, and some of them are really odd. I remember when I was a sports trainer, when I was doing my placement with Parkdale Vultures, there was this guy, it wasn't very pretty, he had T-Rex arms when he was running. I was I couldn't explain it really, how bad it was. And it's just how are we going to a point where there's such a wide variety of running techniques and styles where it should be a pretty, universal thing, but there's just not really taught. And we're just everyone knows how to run because we just inherently do it. And it's just yes, but, there's a bit more to it. But, yourself playing footy, I think we were just talking before that you had an experience, you actually had a running coach when you were a junior playing with Morty Bray you were playing for? Yeah. Just get the microphone a bit, move it in.
Yeah. So, when I played my junior footy at Morty Bray, I remember for one training session we had a running coach come down and he was taking us through a running session and we started to incorporate some running technique stuff, like some A march, B march, just simple stuff, some wall stuff as well, just using the side fencing. And I remember my hamstrings had never felt more cooked from running after that. They were so fatigued, I'd felt them actually switch on. And that coach talked about that feeling as well. He's you feel your hamstrings, actually engage. I'm yeah, I do. This is crazy. I've never thought of anything like this before. And that was, a bit of a wake-up call kind of. Okay, this stuff's, pretty important to do as well. But the problem was we did it that 1 week and then that was that. He didn't come back. So we got 1 week of exposure to it. We all reacted to it great. And then that was that. It just went straight back down, straight back to normal. We lost whatever skills or we'd started to learn through that guy because we couldn't reinforce them and develop them.
Yeah, that motor learning and skill development just wasn't there because you need obviously a bit of time and practice with that as well.
Exactly.
I think the biggest common questions or the biggest concerns we have with parents is does my kid have an awkward running style? Or they notice that their kid is slow or compared to the rest of the other kids that they're playing against, especially if they're undersized as well. And within 8 Australian rules, and I think more so, and especially because they start quite young with Auskick. I think it's 8 or 9 years old they start with Auskick. And they teach them how to kick, they teach them how to handball, they might do some small side games or something like that. But there's nothing really there to actually develop their ability to move across the field. Now, for Australian rules, they're clocking up, between, 8 and 14 Ks a game or something like that.
Yeah, there's some players that just run as well.
Yeah,
so 15 plus.
I'm
depends
saying,
where you play. But
it depends on the position, but that's kind of ballpark. Soccer is soccer's actually a lot more because it's open field, less people on the field as well. And if you ever seen some of the best players in the world across any sport, you notice that their running technique and their ability to be explosive and their ability to cover ground quite quickly is a really big strength. It's the thing that enables them to create space. It's also the thing that allows them to close down space depending on their position as well. Yeah. And it's never, I think the best example I would explain is rugby sevens. So Rugby sevens is basically the shorter game. So obviously 7 on the field. It's rugby union rules essentially, slightly modified. And then these guys are really like quick, explosive, strong. New Zealand, Fiji, Australia, they're like the top nations when it comes to playing rugby sevens. Now the US are not known for rugby by any means. Like I think they qualified for the Rugby World Cup for the 15 format, but they play in the sevens format as well when they travel around the world. They have 2 players, and one player that really stands out is Carlin Isles. Carlin Isles he's known as the fastest player on turf in rugby because he always missed out on the Olympic Games in the 100-meter sprint. Like, they have so much talent in the 100-meter sprint in the US. He was able to convert his track speed into the sport of rugby. Like, it's slightly different. Obviously, 100 meters, you're running dead straight. In rugby, it can be sharp. It can be, curvy linear. You might be making cuts at speed as well. But he managed to actually convert his track speed into a game of rugby. And he ended up, the first year, it was more like a real skill deficit. But he's been playing for a few years now, and his skills have really caught up to his speed. So now he's a genuine threat on the field, and he just scores tries. They used to just like give him the ball and he would just like hold it like almost like an NFL player. And it's like everyone knew like he's not going to pass it because he can't pass. Run. He's just going to run. But if you give him 2 meters, he will burn you. And he was burning like top teams as well. He was scoring tries. Look, doesn't matter about the rest of it, but his speed was just like blistering. Yeah. Then there was another guy, Perry Baker. Very lean dude. Similar position as well. I think he was a top level, a collegiate sprinter as well. But he had so much speed. So it's really interesting to see, like for a sport like rugby, like track and field, leading to a sport like rugby sevens. And there's a guy in Sydney, Mr. Roger Fabry. He is a track. He teaches. He's a speed guy, but he teaches a lot of NRL players how to run properly. So he's working with I think it was Bronson Sherry. He worked with Jared Hayne. I think it was before he went over to play for the 49ers as well, when he had that trial, and his speed is phenomenal. If you ever watch Jared Hayne run in NFL as a punt returner, he would literally just burn people. It was just ridiculous how much speed that he actually has, and it doesn't even look like he's actually running quickly as well. It's just a very unorthodox style. But it was really kind of like that proper running technique and teaching speed has really helped to accelerate or further enhance a lot of players' skill when they might be very skillful or talented, but their running technique may not be up to par as well. So it might be the real deficit for them to really make the next step in where they need to be, especially if you've got to try and cover ground or create space, especially for like a sport like AFL, NRL, rugby, or even like soccer. These sports really do require a lot of technical work on the speed development, and I think in the junior levels, and running itself building speed can take quite a while to really build that. Yes, definitely. You're going to get gains pretty quickly over a 6 to 8 week period, but as we mentioned off air with the speed program that you ran last year. Actually, do you want to talk about like how you ran the speed program for a lot of the junior kids?
Yeah. So I mean, like I'd done a bit of speed work here and there, but it was the first sort of time I'd done like a whole group. So a little bit challenging to start, just sort of working out, I guess, the logistics and like the flow and the structure. But once I'd worked all that out, it was just smooth sailing. Sort of started off the sessions, just dynamic warm up, a little bit of mobility work as well, and then straight into like plyometrics. So building that explosive power, that elasticity as well. And then we'd sort of move in more into the technical side of things, and we just sort of play it by feel a little bit. So I'd just pretty much look at their performance and dictate where the session's going to go based on that. So if they're performing really, really well in like one movement, and just sort of feed off into that and go into the next progression and keep making it a little bit more challenging for them until we sort of find that point as to where it's like, all right, it's a good point to keep you guys at for now.
Yeah.
And then, areas that they're underperforming or not quite spending a tiny bit more time there. So we did a lot of acceleration work as well, and just sort of getting out of the block and just working on what sort of positions they want to be in, and just trying to reinforce. Using film as well is a good tool, so they can sort of see or like the positions they're in, rather than just sort of talking about a feeling. They've actually got something to look at and be like, okay, what felt faster, this or this? And they can say, oh, this felt faster. And I was like, yeah, that's because you've done this. And
you're reinforcing it with the film, yeah.
Yeah, and then, they keep that in the back of their mind, go into the next one, and then just do it again. And they're like, oh, that felt fast. And it's like, yeah.
Yeah, so we did that for about 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Then I guess, what did you start to see from a week-to-week basis with the technique, and what was some of the feedback moving forward?
Yeah, so like starting out, a few of the boys had already done a bit of the technical work through their programming here, but not all of it. And there's still lots of room for improvement. Like I remember when we first did the sprinting work, they'd all just start up straight up tall and then just take off
like a jack in the box.
Like a jack in the box. Like there was no forward lean, there was no negative shin angle. Like it was just start, go. And I was like, all right, let's lengthen out a bit, get lower, try and get that knee out. And they started to notice those little differences. Start to that felt faster.
Like stay low to go.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, you want to almost try and catch yourself, push yourself out of your body, generate that momentum, and then transfer that. Yeah. And sure, it sounds a little bit wordy, but once they sort of got that feeling of getting out of their body, I guess, they started to really, really hone in their speed and their technique.
Yeah. One of the cues I like to use is when they're doing that takeoff is, getting that shin angles, number one, but it's getting to the point where you're about to trip or stumble.
That's pretty much what I said. It's you should almost be falling over yourself, then you have to.
Then your legs will turn over really quickly.
Yeah, and just little steps.
Yeah, and that's what creates that easy momentum. It's almost kind of catapults you or shoots you out.
Yeah, and especially for there's a hockey player and a soccer player that we had. They had a pretty big tendency to overstride and forward lean. So the hockey player, obviously having a stick, he's used to running
forward leaning the whole time.
Forward leaning the entire time. So it was more trying to teach him just to stay in a little bit more upright position, so that he's not collapsing forward. Because when he'd go to accelerate out, his chest would start up and then it would just drop completely, and he's almost horizontal or parallel to the ground.
Okay.
Yeah. So
rather than just being able to just hold.
Yeah, rather than be able to hold that position and then eventually start to come a bit more upright
as he gets faster.
Yeah, he was just I don't know, just negative lean. Yeah. And then the soccer player as well. She started out with a very, very big overstride. Especially, I really, really noticed it on the B series. She would miss the mark quite often, hit really far out in front. So I really worked on with her for a little bit of just doing smaller steps, when we do an acceleration step, and start to incorporate smaller steps. And then eventually she just sort of that tied into just her natural way of running, and she just sort of started to notice that she was moving faster, she was feeling better on the field, and she was noticing those differences as well, which is great.
Yeah. Then I get an email from Dad. He's like, the speed program's been great. Top speed used to be about 17 Ks in training, because they have a device that she wears on her shoes or on her cleats that measures contacts and speed and all that jazz. She went from 17 kilometers max speed in training to 24 kilometers, which is
pretty
huge.
Nuts. Yeah, pretty nuts in such a short period as well.
This is 8-10 weeks.
Yeah, and you think with strength training, speed training, all that sort of stuff, it's a process. It doesn't happen that quickly, and to see improvements like that, that quickly is great.
Yeah, and obviously dad's chuffed.
Yeah.
Daughter's chuffed.
Yeah, and it's just, ties directly into her performance. She's going to perform better if she can get to the ball before that opponent or get to the opponent before they get away from it.
I think then mentally as well, so we're obviously talking about physiological changes, then mentally they're going to feel a lot more confident in their playing ability.
Yeah, definitely. And, not even on the field. I know, off the field, one of the guys was saying, it's like, oh, dude, I feel great. I haven't missed the bus once. Whenever I've tried to, had to run it down or he's going to be a little bit late, he's been able to get it every time. I was like, yeah, it's a small win.
Yeah.
But it just, sprinkles its way into your everyday life that you might not think about. But those, the efforts that might have been, 100% and it might only be 90 now.
He's microdosing that sprint training.
Yeah, literally. He's literally what he's doing, yeah. Yeah,
then, all right, so we've discussed kind of with the benefits and, more the technical side and some of the results. And, how do we, what's the easiest way for, parents to go out and actually be like, all right, what do I do? This is great. This is what my kid needs. What are some, basic starting points?
Yeah, so, seek guidance as well. Getting a guidance from a coach is going to be the best way to do it. You need an external source to be able to make sure you're in the right position as well. It's very, very hard to work off feeling when you're doing the technical stuff. Yes, you can get a good feeling whether or not you're doing it right or wrong, but those minute adjustments are going to have to be seen from external eyes where they might see something that you might not feel, but they know is going to be more beneficial.
I'll give you an example of that, actually. So we've had a triathlete, had a really bad ankle. And we filmed him from side on, and we just got him running just that top speed, which wasn't his running pace where he was doing his triathlon, obviously, but I wanted to see how he was. And what I had noticed is he overstrided with one of the legs and the other one was perfectly fine, especially when he planted his foot. He actually had a really bad ankle injury. He tore 2 ligaments, kind of shattered his ankle in playing soccer. And what had happened was he had a compensation strategy in order to prevent the ankle from actually appropriately loading up. He would actually overstride with that leg just to protect it. And for us, from a biomechanical perspective, we actually want to make sure that the foot is more under us because it's going to allow the torso to actually travel over. If you think of trying to slow down, you put your feet out in front of you to slow down.
Yeah.
Right? If you want to go faster, you want to have them slightly behind you. But if you want to continue at pace, the where the foot actually strikes the ground is more going to be underneath, allowing the torso to move forward and continue that turnover.
Yeah.
Right? Otherwise, forces, if your feet are in front, forces being projected back, then it takes more effort, more energy. Your hamstrings are probably going to get, and that's how hamstring, strains and tears can actually happen, is from that overstriding quite regularly. Anyways,
that's the phase where that hamstring injury occurs.
Because it's lengthening.
Fully lengthened position and there's just too much force at play.
Well, when your leg swings forward when your foot swings forward, and then your hip is bent, so your knee is in front of you. So for those who aren't listening, who are listening only, then you've got your foot going out, so your knee's starting to straighten out. Your hamstrings getting pulled in both directions.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's where your hamstrings strains and tears. Yeah. As soon as you plant it on the ground, and if you're under fatigue as well, it's a greater likelihood it's going to happen also. Then that can actually lead to the injury. And then the other issue is, long story short, we noticed that, incorporated some drills, especially more like B-march, B-skip, but also scissor leg bounds to get his foot underneath. And then he would actually break out into a stride from doing scissor leg bounds. And then he would notice that his turnover was a lot more efficient. He found it so much easier. But I think what I had noticed with a lot of soccer players, and this is just a general trend, or a general observation that I've made, is they have a greater tendency to overstride because the ball's out in front of them.
Yeah.
How do you you got to dribble the ball, right? So what do? They have to try and kick it forward.
Yeah, and you think about it when they've got the ball out forward, they're then going to reach their leg out past again to try and get it further out so they can run onto it.
Yeah, then if they've got someone against them.
Yeah, and it's I feel from what I've observed, they definitely do have especially more forwards have a tendency to overstride. Midfielders a little bit as well. The defenders, I don't think as much because they don't get to as much of a top speed. they're more
with that, not with the ball. No.
Not with the ball. Like, yeah, they're usually, running down someone, or when they've got the ball, it's a bit more composed. They're playing around the back. They're playing through the line, down the wing. But yeah, no, I definitely agree with you in that regard.
Then I think if we can teach them to actually not shorten up their stride, but improve the actual where the foot strikes the ground, they'll actually be able to hit the ball a lot closer to where their foot lands as well, which means they're not actually having to slow down in order to hit the ball, then have to try and speed up again. They can actually maintain pace. And then last year we ran a footy program with a good old mate, Dean Jones. And I had a bit of an epiphany when I was actually starting off doing the running technique with the kids, is when they started to really overstride from the get-go. And there's a lot of new kids, but the ones I've done before, they're actually pretty good. So they had retained what I had taught them in term 1, so like 6 months or over 6 months in between. What had happened is there was a net positive effect on their ability to kick on the run. What I had noticed with Dean Jones's kids is when he first starts working with them, and this is a really big skill that a lot of kids struggle, is kicking on the run, is if you're a right footer, you kick with the ball with the right foot. It's your left foot that's really that solid base in order to kick off, right?
Exactly.
So what happened was a lot of kids, they would plant their left foot really far forward and then lean back to kick the ball.
That's what I used to do.
What Dean has been teaching them with the actual skill of kicking on the run is to try and keep their weight over that left foot.
Yeah.
When we're doing the running technique, we're teaching them to get over that foot.
Yeah.
When we're doing more like running at speed. So doing a lot of those B march, B skips, scissor leg bounds is teaching them to actually get the foot to actually strike more underneath the body rather than out in front, because otherwise they have no choice but to slow down in order to kick, because they have to lean back. And then when you're leaning back, you're losing speed and you're more likely to skyball it as well, rather than actually staying over the ball and be able to have it more of a direct dart effect in your kicking. And when we got to the end of the program, lo and behold, a majority of them actually managed to actually kick on the run at pace, take 10 steps, then kick, if it's out of a contest. So, and that's where it's going to make kids really dangerous, dangerous in a good way for football. Let's not get it twisted. That if you can really teach your kids to run, or any footballer, it doesn't matter what sport it really is, to run properly, it will further enhance the skills that they're trying to develop as well.
Yeah, definitely. And like the research is out there that these running drills, they improve your lower body power, they improve that neuromuscular connection, so that you're going to be more in tune, being on that one leg, putting that load on that one leg, and then being able to transfer, your other leg through.
The rhythm and timing.
Yeah, the rhythm and timing starts to come into it as well, and it just sort of all flows together. And then, 100%.
Cool. I don't know how else to say that. But, I guess the key takeaways you mentioned before is, getting someone who is a coach or running coach. You can always come here. We got an enrollment for term 1 for 2024 for our speed development program as well. We've got a few sign-ups already. Coach Jack will be taking that again as well. And the beauty part of this one is we're going to be testing on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
So the idea is
timing gates.
Yeah, is utilizing the timing gates to actually track it, to just make sure that we're in downward trend, but using that information. So if they're preseason now, a lot of kids are preseason, if they're cooked, we're going to know about it pretty quick. And we can use that as an educational tool as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and there was those sessions where they've I've played, 2-3 games, and I've had training before, I'm just dead. And I'm like, yeah, it's all right. Let's do this as a little bit more recovery,
Yeah.
And just sort of modified it a little bit for them, but for the most part, still kept them doing the same stuff because, they're there with their mates. They want to be involved.
Yeah, and we just use another learning opportunity to teach them about, recovery. Okay, your muscles are sore. Okay, what did you eat? Not much. Okay, you got to get your next 3 meals got to be really good.
Yeah,
really
exactly.
Solid.
Yeah.
Cool. I think that's pretty much it on that one. got out what I wanted to, get my little rant for the day. Cool. If you like this episode, please like and subscribe. Share it with any friends or parents or anything along those lines. Like I said before, we want to make sure we get this content out to all parents. I think it is discussed, but it's not really discussed where we can easily share. We know it's good, but a lot of people want to know how it's good, what to do. And I think the next steps is the real critical part for a lot of people, is understanding what to do moving forward. And this is an easy way that we can actually help people move forward, is, Jack teaching them from a technical perspective, developing their strength, which is going to transfer to their power out of that 0 to 5 meters, which is going to have a positive transfer effect as well. We're seeing some great results from this program, and also from injury prevention as well. So parents are concerned, hamstring tears, strains, osteitis pubis, adductor strains, ankle issues, just teaching them how to run properly will prevent the overload of those specific tissue structures as well, where it's more spread out across the body. But then we have an opportunity to teach them about, what to do post-training, proper recovery, help with the tissue adaptation, incorporating some isometrics into that to help with tendon ligament regeneration. So many things we can do. But until next time, we'll see you on the next one.
You have just listened to the Inner Athlete podcast. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date with the release of weekly episodes. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram to get great tips on all things youth athlete development and youth mentoring.